Serious, why did you cheat on your partner? You/Beeb mommy responded. Because I truly had no idea what a healthy or functional relationship looked like. My parents were married for almost 30 years and had already started the cycle of cheating on each other well before I was born. My grandma used to tell me stories of being friends with my grandpa's girlfriends because she just wasn't toxic and jealous like other women. In the relationship where I cheated, I was being treated like garbage. Financially supporting us both even though I was 10 years younger and a waitress, enduring a lot of abuse from a very broken man. I felt trapped in the same cycle. I had watched my mom and my grandma live. I didn't really know better. A guy at work started paying attention to me, and I loved it. He was sweet and poetic and romantic, committed to helping his sister raise his niece, was out of the house and working instead of drinking my paycheck away and punching holes in my walls. A little harmless work flirting quickly escalated, and before I knew it, I was having a whole-ass affair. I started to prepare myself to leave my boyfriend for my affair partner, when I found out that my boyfriend had been cheating on me with anyone he could find on Craigslist, including stealing money from me to pay sex workers. Any guilt I felt for cheating evaporated right then. I threw all my clothes in a trash bag and drove to my affair partner's house, ready to start our new life together. He had another girl over, basically admitted that a lot of what he had said to me was because he thought I would never leave. You/Umbrav Death responded. I came here to try and understand what goes on in someone's head when this happens because LVE been cheated on sexually and emotionally. Instead, I'm just left feeling sorry for the people in this thread. So many people in such a dark place pulling their partners down to an equally dark place. I hope everyone here that has cheated has grown and gotten help, and that they can pursue a healthy and fulfilling relationship after they've grown past that. For the people that have been cheated on, I'm sorry all of you went through that, and I hope it never happens again. Sometimes it feels like something I'll never fully recover from, and other times I refuse to let past hurts ruin the chance of something good happening. So I want the people who have been hurt by their partner's cheating to know just because it's happened once doesn't mean it will again, and good things can still happen for you. You/divorcing guy 1234 responded. Because my wife told me that she was no longer interested in having sex with me, she didn't want me having it with anyone else, and she forbade me from watching porn or masturbating. I still did the latter, but we could never discuss it or she'd freak out. So to get my sexual needs met by someone other than myself, for several years, a few times per year I paid a sex worker for a happy ending massage. This was still cheating, but I rationalized it as the mildest form of cheating possible. No chance of an STI, no chance of an unwanted pregnancy, no emotional involvement. I knew it was wrong, but at the time I felt like it was my best choice out of several lousy choices. I realize now I should have just said at the time, I want a divorce. That's where we ended up anyway, and I would have saved myself, my wife, and our kids some needless pain over the years. By cheating on her, and hiding it from her, I made it so much worse when she eventually found out. To cheaters on here, I would say, get out of your relationship. If you're cheating, you're clearly not happy. Do yourself and your partner a favor and just end it now, before it all goes to hell. You/secret_guarantee_277 responded. Because I wasn't over my ex, and when she came knocking I didn't value my new relationship enough and crossed a line I never will lower myself to cross again. You feel like shit for years after it, really not worth it no matter how you try to justify it to yourself at the time. You/B4TT3RY4C1D responded. If only my ex had read it so I could have closure. Edit. Lots of replies here so I'll add mine. We were together for a year and a half, engaged for 2 weeks. Hung out with her one night and she seemed off. Forced it out of her she had feelings for her coworker. Gave her a whole week to sort her feelings out and instead she got pregnant from him. Now LVE got trust issues, so thanks V, hope it was worth it. I sold the ring for 1/10 of what I paid. You/recover sex addict responded. Because I was too chicken shit to get a divorce because I was wildly unhappy and too proud to go to therapy to fix the marriage. So I cheated, got caught, and have since been to a ton of therapy and am getting a divorce. Even though I'm happy to have this relationship in my rear view, cheating is my life's biggest regret. You/Craybest responded. Okay, this happened like 20 years ago with an ex. I was around 22 years old young gay, and he was around 40 I'll think. The age gap was something that always rubbed me the wrong way. I was constantly doubting the relationship. Even kind of broke up a few times because of it, but then we came back together. We had been together like for 4 months by then. One night at the club, with some friends, I decided that if I was constantly doubting it, it was because it was something that I wasn't okay with, and decided to break up with him. He wasn't with me that night, so I decided to tell him the next day. Since I was already at the club and was going to break up with him, I thought it wouldn't matter if I met someone new, and I did make out with one of the club dancers, and then went to his place and had sex and everything. It wasn't until the next day morning, sobered up, that I realized I didn't want to break up with him, and even worse, I also realized that meant I had just cheated on him. Felt awful. I called him later during the day, told him everything while crying, assuming he'd just break up with me, but instead he told me to meet somewhere public. He brought me a gift, and told me he was okay with it. He understood what I was feeling, and it's just things that happen. I was confused by the reaction. We were together for a few months more and then he broke up with me XD. Can't blame him, I was a horny mess. By you/EKcar responded. I've never cheated, but my ex was a sex addict who ended up going to prison. There were so many excuses, blame shifting, pleas for forgiveness, therapy, etc., until finally he hit rock bottom and admitted to a sex addiction. He ended up joining SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, and I ended up joining COSA, a 12-step group for people whose lives have been affected by another person's compulsive sexual behavior. It completely changed my life and made me realize that there are people who cheat for one reason or another, and then there are people who cheat because it's their addiction, so it doesn't need a why. I thought LD mention it here just in case somebody out there needs to see it. You/defs not randomarsh responded. Insecurity, poor self-image, and an inability to put aside morals in exchange for stroking my ego. I was bullied all throughout school, depressed, angry, so after school when I started actually getting attention from women, I went nuts. My ego was exploding. I'd lie about where I was going, delete text messages, have alternate accounts, etc. etc. I thought I was sly. I wasn't. She knew. They always find out. I've changed a lot since, and thankfully we're still together, but it hasn't been without its trials and tribulations. There are times I see the hurt in her eyes, and I wish I could take it all back, but at the same time, I really don't think LD be where I'm at as a person today, if it weren't for that experience. It took a lot for me to realize just what type of person I actually was, and I woke up one morning looking in the mirror, and didn't like the person who was staring back at me. It was like an out-of-body experience where I didn't recognize myself, but I knew I hated what I was looking at. It's taken a lot, and I make sure I tell her every day that I love her, that I'll forever be hers for as long as she'll have me, but if she were to tell me tomorrow that she's done, I wouldn't hold it against her. She's my best friend, she's helped me grow as a person, and been way more patient than she had to be, and I wish I could take what I know now, go back in time, and start all over, just so she wouldn't have that hurt and that doubt that I know is eating away in the back of her mind. She doesn't deserve it. You/deleted, responded. He was abusive piece of shit. Would threaten me all of the time with various shit. He then cheated on me multiple times and called me crazy for accusing him of such things. We talked all of the time about how I felt. The problem was he had a kid that I grew really attached to. Obviously if I left, I would never see them again. And when I did break up with him, it was a fucking disaster because he would never leave me alone and I was weak. It was a vicious cycle. And honestly, he never wanted to have sex with me. Probably because he was getting it from someone else. We also talked a lot about it. I was in therapy for so long during that relationship. I met someone who I felt really valued me. He never lied to me, he always was around when I called. I don't regret cheating. I know it hurt him and I don't care. I broke up with him then. He of course tried everything he could to get me back. Not because he loved me but because he could control me. The worst part for me was when he called me with his kid. I almost broke down. But the guy I cheated on him with was with me every step of the way. Never got angry when I would have panic attacks about it, never scolded me for small things. Honestly, me cheating probably saved my life. The guy I cheated with and I been together for almost a decade, and married for 5 of those years. Never cheated ever again. You/deleted, responded. Wife of 7 years cheated on me about a month ago, out of the blue. For me, I was blindly in love, blind to the signals and the details. 2 children, house, everything. She was the love of my life, she destroyed me. I've been battling the ever-increasing urge to go out and have meaningless sex with a friend of hers, with a family member of hers or with my ex, which she despises with her guts. I know that if I write to any of those 3 girls, chances are they are going to let me have their way with them. Her friend always has sent me the looks, same as her cousin. My ex has spent the last 7 years writing me on Facebook about how the minute I divorce I can call her. I had her blocked her of course, but I have since unblocked her. Last she messaged me was 5 months ago. She divorced her own husband about 6 months ago. I've been going to therapy and I am conscious about what I must and must not do. Today I found and liked a video from my ex on TikTok. She liked my videos and started following me. I had decided to message her today. But reading this thread is giving me plenty of reasons to not do it. I will try my best to remain strong, faithful to myself, my morals, my principles. To not stoop to my wife's level. Thank you to everyone here that is giving their honest opinions and life experiences. You never know whose life you may be touching with your words. To past cheaters. Apologize from the bottom of your heart, apologize, leave nothing back, and disappear. You will never understand the damage you have done, but your sincere and complete admission of guilt and apology will do good for both you and your ex-partner. Deleted, responded. My current husband is who I cheated with. Long backstory summed up. My current husband and I met at 14 and he was the first person I slept with. He was running wild during his high school years, early 20s, and would not let himself date me because he knew he'd fuck it up. We talked on and off throughout the years. After I had my daughter and got cheated on, he actually messaged me one day and basically told me that he'd always been in love with me. I had always felt the same exact way about him, but never said it. I did not think he felt that way and was really surprised. Nothing really happened at that point, but a few years later I kept telling my husband I was unhappy, couldn't forgive him, didn't want to be with him. He wasn't really open to divorce at that point and I was done. My current husband messaged me randomly to tell me I was in a dream he had the night before. We pretty much started talking every day from that point on. I lived in a different state so we FaceTimed a lot and I got my plans together to move back to my home state, file for divorce, etc. I did make a trip to see him, twice, while I was getting things set up, and the first time I think we had sex 9 times in like 24 hours. I felt guilty, but I also had already told my husband I wanted to divorce and he wasn't accepting and I was no longer physical with him. I had an interview in person up here for a job a few weeks after and stayed in a hotel with him for a few days. After that, I moved back with my kids, ex moved back up here with his parents, I filed for divorce and we were then officially together. I honestly don't regret it. I am so in love with my husband and he is so in love with me. It took a lot of years and a lot of ups and downs for us to finally get to be together. You/JorgePal02 responded. Insecurity, being young and horny, stupidity. Had no one to blame but myself. She was a great partner. Very loving. We all have things about our partners we wish we could change, but I think back on our time fondly. That chapter in my life that we wrote together was a beautiful time in life. It's easy to say now that LD do things differently, but I'm not 100% sure. I think I still have a whole lot of growing up to do. I guess it's why I'm 40 and choose to remain single. That fact and the fact that I refuse to give my heart to another. The fear of heartache is just too strong. You/deleted responded. Something changed when I met my ex. Loved him more than anyone before. I kissed someone else when I was away for school, and for the first time in my life, I felt real guilt about it. Like that gnawing, rabid guilt that is all-consuming. So I confessed to him that very evening. Despite knowing I could lose him, we were 1,500 miles apart, and there's nothing I could do about it. But for fucking once I accepted the consequences of my actions, knowing damn well there was no excuse. I cheated because I was selfish. That's when things changed for me. I did a 180. Started therapy, stopped lying completely, both to myself and others, and had discovered a newfound humility in my past actions. Since then, he and I broke up because my actions had tarnished our relationship and he never fully recovered. It was absolutely tragic and it's been a while since we dated, but I am still in love with him, I still think of him, but that hurt is a constant reminder to never be the careless cheater I was before. He deserves better and I wish that for him. In the meantime I continue therapy and finding happiness in the truth. We are all humans and sometimes we fuck up on a cosmic level. That doesn't mean we are permanently damned to a life of shittiness. If you want to change, you can. So to those of you who think every cheater deserves the guillotine no questions asked, I invite you to reflect on your actions a little, and I hope that you realize we really are all just humans doing the best we can, even those of us with a tainted past. You/OK Vegetable 7196 responded. He essayed me multiple times. I tried to leave for 3 years, from ages 16 to 19. Once, May 2022, he told me I won't let you leave me because of our sex life. Like me being numb every time wasn't a valid argument, so L developed a crush on a friend. I didn't act on it and it mainly faded, but when I finally broke up, June 2022, with my ex, 8 days later I slept with said friend and my ex says I cheated because we were emotionally together. After the breakup, He kept texting and calling me with anxiety attacks and spent 3 days at my house, being vulnerable and stuff. I felt so deep for him I couldn't be mad. After leaving, he spent a whole day calling me and the next day I slept with my friend. My ex asked about him, I told him we slept together and he blocked me. Honestly, a very traumatic experience. U/Puchus Maximus responded. If I had a solid answer, I would probably not feel like killing myself on a regular basis. I fucked up badly, admitted to it because I still loved her and took the consequences I deserved. Was I unhappy? Maybe. Was I scared of the future? Sure, who isn't? Did I ruin someone else's life because I was too much of a fucking idiot to face my shit head on and figure it out? Yeah. Was I burnt out from the years of taking care of her? Maybe, but that's what you do when you love someone, and I should have been adult enough to talk about. I'm sorry every day and have been for over a year now. I hate myself for it and probably will never forgive myself. And TBH at this point IDK if I could date someone again. I thought I got over that. Must fuck new people part of my life. But no. The worst bit is she told me that I could have come to her and talked about wanting to fuck someone else. I just was too scared to bring that up, so I did the most genius thing and fucked it up anyway. Don't make that mistake, kids. She probably will never see this, but I'm sorry. Words don't mean anything after breaking someone like that, but what else do we have but words at this point? I probably should have let her take both cats instead of us separating them. She's my cat, but they got along together. U/East Event 7783 responded. After having children and specifically special needs kids, I was living an hour away for several months at a time. Communication with my ex became really stagnant, and I begged and begged for support. He came to visit maybe 5 times while I was with our sick kid. I received male attention from people who I felt like genuinely cared about my well-being and my child's. Our relationship sucked since then, slept on separate beds, barely talked, worked opposite shifts, and things progressed. I feel horrible and I learned a lot of things from this experience. I will never put myself in that position again. U/Saturn Girl 11087 responded. I was raped at a party in college, while in a long-distance relationship. We were high school sweethearts who'd stayed together through senior year of college. I loved him, but he'd been growing distant, and so when that happened I didn't feel I could tell him. Like many survivors, it kinda destroyed who I was before that and changed my attitude towards sex. At that point, what did it matter if I slept with someone else? I'd already cheated. Became very promiscuous in a misplaced effort to deal with the trauma. A few months later I broke up with him because I was racked with guilt. I think that if he ever found out about the cheating, it was from stalking my Reddit account and not from me, so he never knew about the rapes. LVE carried guilt about this for a decade now. He deserved better. U/Director Chick responded. I was being abused in my marriage. My ex-husband had me convinced I was bad and wrong in every sense of the word for the 3 years we were together. The first time someone saw real value in me as a person I just clung to, it became sexual after that, but I think I was just starved for someone who didn't think I was the worst person ever. This was at the end of our marriage, the last 6 months of it. For the bulk of our relationship I was faithful to him and he made sure to emphasize that no one but him could even put up with my existence. So I guess when someone not only put up with me but saw real value in me, I grabbed hold of it. It was a shitty marriage and I'm glad I'm out. It's been almost 10 years and I'm still living through the PTSD of that relationship. I never cheated before or since. U/El Horton responded. Our sex had dried up but friends were still overnighting at her place, sleeping on the sofa, while they traveled between states. Suspiciously, I'd visit the next day or so and we couldn't have sex because her sheets were in the wash and the bed wasn't made. She was always tired after her friends visited. Sometimes they stayed longer than expected and she'd have to reschedule previous made plans to hang out with me. One time, we had planned to see a new movie together but she went to see it with someone else even though she knew I wanted to see it with her and we had made plans to see it on release day. U/Wackanati4 Eva responded. The hindsight answer is because I needed constant validation to function. And I truly believed that everyone cheats, so why bother being faithful? Found someone wonderful who agreed not to ask questions about where I am or who I'm with, etc. if I'd offer the same. Yada yada years I was asked to be traditional and I said fuck that emphatically. Figured I'd miss her but make up the difference by keeping options open. Predictably no amount of casual sex could make up the difference. Cue every single form of being pathetic and filled with regret imaginable. Yada yada years met someone wonderful and facing the fear of being faithful and monogamous. U/Deleted responded. I was working in a restaurant on Valentine's Day when I got a text from my boyfriend's ex explaining that he showed up to her house with a poem about how much he still loved her. That night, I went home with a coworker. And every time he'd compare me to his ex, I'd cheat on him again. Every time she texted me with screenshots, I'd cheat on him again. Anytime he said he wished I had her ass, he wished I had her music taste, wished I could do art like her, wished I thought more like her, showed me love notes he'd written for her, I'd cheat again. It all came to a head when his ex sent me nudes. Apparently he'd been talking about how good I was in bed, but not as good as her, of course, and told her I was bisexual. She sent me nudes, we sexted, I sent nudes back, and she screenshot everything and sent it to my BF. He came crying to me, and then we broke up. I have no regrets. It was a petty 5-month relationship that I knew was gonna end. And I'm probably gonna sound worse for saying this, but cheating really did give me the satisfaction of hurting him back. Deleted, responded. Honestly, she was in Japan and I was in the States. We'd down long distance before, but it was quite tired of it. This was the last time, but I never felt like a priority. She'd never really spend time with me outside of ourselves. Besides family sometimes. Getting her to try something I like was always pushed off till later, which she never did anything during that time. I honestly felt like she liked the idea of loving me but didn't actually love me. I started feeling this way before she left and we discussed it. And we had a good time before she left. But it just felt after 6 years now that you're leaving you wanna do something I like, which was a bigger slap in the face. I asked her to marry me a few times and was told that I wasn't ready or I need more time to work on myself. Which to me felt like a projection. She left for Japan before for only 4 months, in which I was faithful, and I told her before she left again in 2021 that the 4 months is the max I can go without starting to look for ways to scratch that itch. I honestly should have just cut it off, but I was legitimately scared to tell her the truth, not just about me cheating but how she made me feel and constantly being long distance. I cheated on her with the girl I'm W now. And while I do wish I can take back what I did, my mental health is no longer suffering and I'm not considering killing myself every other day. She hates me. I owe her like $3,000 for an apartment we shared, but once that's done I'm freeing myself completely of her. I dated her for the wrong reasons and left her for the same. I'm a POS that should go die, but for what it's worth I'm actually happy RN. No, she never cheated on me, but I never felt like myself when I was her. Thanks for asking this question. U/L_C_fire121 responded. The craziest part to me about cheating is how common it is. I've seen couples that seemed like they were obsessed with each other and so in love that it was annoying to watch, and they cheated. I've seen the difference in men and women when they're out with their partner, and when they're out alone. I've seen the flirtatious behavior even if there was no follow-through, or flirty texts. Attraction is real, and I think people have a hard time trying their hardest to be good or committed when everything in their body is telling them to chase this good feeling of want and validation and the excitement and thrill of someone new. People act virtuous like I would never, but it's the same people liking guys' pictures on social media, or allowing men to be too friendly or flirty when their partner isn't around. My point is that even couples I never thought would cheat do in some form or fashion, and I think to some degree at some point in a relationship, if it's long enough, infidelity of some kind will happen. I think the problem with society is the shame that comes with it, and it's so hypocritical to see people on here sharing their stories and being bashed for it. You don't have to agree with other people's decisions or behaviors, but calling them pieces of shit or shaming them when you're not perfect yourself is just frustrating to see. U/dry_profession_8263 responded. I got married at 18. My ex-husband joined the military, shortly after moving with him near base. He found out he was getting deployed. I told him I didn't think I could handle it. I couldn't do it. I grew up in a very unstable, neglectful household. I needed therapy. I felt like my only family was getting ripped away from me. I went back home while he was gone, which made it worse. I cried myself to sleep every night while he was gone. He never called, emailed a couple times a week. I got a job nearby. A guy that worked there started flirting with me, and I did back. Eventually he asked me to come over. That night, all the way to his place, I was thinking how wrong this was. My brain was screaming at me to turn around. My stomach was in knots knowing what I was doing was wrong. I told myself nothing would happen, I was just going to hang out. All that to say, I don't know why I did it. I guess to have sex. I guess I was lonely, scared, depressed, sitting back in my high school bedroom alone. None of the excuses could make up for what I did. It destroyed my partner. I'm still not sure he has recovered 10 years later. I didn't want to do it, but Elle did it anyway. After I told him what happened, he started calling me every day, even though he said there was no way to call me. You/epitome engineer responded. Wasn't an official relationship, we had met only 3 weeks prior at a wedding and started doing a weekly video date during COVID since we were in different states. Situationship A. I was not planning on doing anything for the holiday on Saturday and told her that on our Friday night Zoom date. After we got off the call, I was invited to a party where I was presented with an opportunity to get with a crush from college. We were caught making out by the, now former, bride who set me up with A at the wedding, and things went downhill from there. Sprinkle in a major brain health scare the next morning, I was a mess for a few days. I knew what I had done was wrong, but didn't know how to explain it to A. She called me 5 days later to end things. This was also a few hours after I was told I can no longer drink for the rest of my life if I want to avoid the health scare again. Spoiler, it wasn't the alcohol causing the health issues. Only recently have I been able to come to terms with my actions and why I did it. I was physically lonely. I was egotistic and thought I could get away with it given the distance. Out of sight, out of mind is a huge challenge I face daily, ADHD. I wanted one more hookup before I chased A into a relationship. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly.